My fiancé told me, contracts are cold. I'd leave if you mentioned that again. I said, understood. Then I mentioned it again in court, during the breakup mediation. The evening started out exactly the way I liked it. Quiet, unhurried, just the two of us in the kitchen. Lila stood barefoot by the stove, wearing one of my old college t-shirts and stirring something that smelled incredible. Her smile was bright as always, and she tossed a glance over her shoulder. Almost done, she said, wiping her hands on a towel. I poured her a glass of wine and set it on the counter. You're spoiling me, I said, though she knew gnocchi was my weakness. Handmade, pillowy, tossed in brown butter and sage. When we sat down, Lila was glowing. Her hair was pinned up messily, a few strands falling into her eyes. She looked happy. This should have been a perfect night. And it was, right up until I opened my mouth. There's something I wanted to bring up, I said, using the calmest voice I could manage. Lila's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Uh-oh, she said with a laugh. That sounds ominous. I smiled. It's nothing bad. Just practical. She set her fork down and leaned in. Okay. Hit me. I hesitated for half a second, then said it. I've been thinking we should draw up a marriage agreement. Her smile froze. Not because I don't trust us, I added quickly, but because I built the company before we met. And now that part of it's in a family trust. I just want to protect what existed before. For both of us. Lila blinked. You mean a prenup? It's more of a contract between partners. Something that clarifies. Her wine glass hit the table a little harder than it needed to. Wow, that's really unromantic. It's not meant to be romantic, I said evenly. It's just something smart couples do when one person brings in pre-existing assets. She stared at me like I just confessed to cheating. Do you really think I'm the kind of person who'd come after your money? No, I said. But I also never thought I'd sell a company before 35. Things change. And I want to be sure I'm protecting the legacy of what I've built, not just for me, but for any kids we might have one day. Lila pushed her chair back. So you don't trust me. It's not about trust. It's about clarity. Responsibility. She stood, arms crossed. Well, here's my clarity. If you ever bring that contract up again, we're done. Is that clear enough for you? I looked at her, and for a long moment, I couldn't say anything. That was the first time I truly saw her. Not the radiant, social, adored Lila everyone else knew. Not the girl who brought wine to book club and remembered everyone's dog's name. But someone else, someone sharper, colder. Understood, I said. She smiled, like I'd just come to my senses. Good. Love is enough, Adrian. That's what matters. She kissed my cheek and went to the kitchen to clean up, humming like nothing had happened. But I sat there, unmoving. My appetite gone. My mind already working. Because what she saw as the end of the conversation, I saw as the start of something else. A clause, buried deep in the fine print. One that said, if you ever question me, I walk. And I wasn't going to forget that. Not now. Not ever. The next morning, things were normal. Too normal. Lila was already in the living room with her laptop open and a mug of tea in her hand. She greeted me with her usual sunny smile like nothing happened the night before. I walked past her, grabbed the French press from the counter, and poured myself a cup of coffee. Did you sleep okay? She asked, eyes still on the screen. Fine, I said. She glanced up. I hope we're not still dwelling on last night. I mean, I know that kind of conversation can feel weird, but I don't want to drag it out. I sat across from her, hands around my mug. I'm not dragging it out. She gave a relieved sigh and smiled again. Good. Because I meant what I said. There's no room for contracts between people who love each other. I nodded slowly. I heard you. She leaned back against the couch cushions. It's just, when you talk about stuff like that, it makes me feel like I'm on trial. Like you don't see me as a partner, but as a threat. I don't see you that way, I said. Then let's never bring it up again, she said, her voice soft but unmistakably firm. Because if we do, I'm not sure I could stay in a relationship where I'm treated like I need to be managed. She didn't say it angrily. That's what made it more dangerous. It was said with warmth, with that calm confidence people mistake for grace. But it wasn't a conversation. It was a condition. She set her tea down and reached for my hand. We're building a life together, right? A real life. No fine print. No exit clauses. I looked down at her fingers laced through mine. They were soft, uncalloused, perfectly manicured. She gave them a squeeze. We're not like those people who marry for convenience. This is real. All we need is love. Of course, I said. Love. She beamed, satisfied. But something in me had shifted. Because what she'd said, what she thought was beautiful, was actually a threat. A soft one. But a threat all the same. She wasn't rejecting the contract because it was too legal. She was rejecting the idea that boundaries should exist at all. That anything before her might still have value on its own. And me? I'd been listening. Carefully. She thought I dropped it. That I'd surrendered. She mistook my silence for submission. But I was already adjusting. Shifting. Strategizing. Because love doesn't cancel legacy. And the man I was becoming, the man who built something worth protecting, wasn't about to be cornered. Not by charm. Not by sentiment. Not even by the woman he thought he was going to marry. The war hadn't started yet, but I was already building my defenses. It started subtly. At first, I didn't even catch it. A couple charges here and there on the business card I kept for consulting expenses. A dinner at some high-end sushi place I'd never been to. A boutique purchase from a designer I knew Lila liked. I figured it was a mistake. Maybe she grabbed the wrong card. I texted her. Hey, did you accidentally use my Amex for that Tularosa charge? Lila, oh, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I'll Venmo you later. She didn't, but I let it slide. The next week, another charge. Then another. And then it wasn't subtle anymore. A 3-night hotel stay in Napa with her mother. A $2,100 invoice from a luxury floral company, just for a little brunch I threw for the girls. Catering receipts. Jewelry stores. A custom shelving unit for gallery storage that somehow ended up in our guest bedroom. I didn't say anything. I just quietly removed her as an authorized user and had a new card sent to the office. Then I logged every single transaction, every dollar, every date. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just observing. Because this wasn't about forgetfulness. It was a test. A pressure point she was pushing, one transaction at a time, to see how far I'd been. A week later, over dinner, she mentioned a house. Well, not just any house, she said, scrolling through photos on her phone. It's in Pacific Heights. 5 beds, 3.5 baths, and that view? Ugh, it's to die for. I looked up. You're serious? She laughed. Come on, we're not poor. You could buy it tomorrow. I tilted my head. Is that what this is about now? Her smile didn't falter. What? This sudden interest in upgrading everything. Cards, brunches, real estate. I'm just dreaming, she said. Besides, we'd need help. Then she added, too casually, my parents think it's a great idea. Dad said it'd be a smart move, start our family in a real home. Not a starter one. Our family, I repeated, slowly. And whose help supposed to be? Lila shrugged. They'd pitch in, but you'd handle the down payment. Obviously. It hit me then, not just the greed, but the confidence. The assumption that what I had was already theirs. My wealth had been mentally absorbed into their future. And now they were getting bolder. Her parents started stopping by more. Offering unsolicited advice on landscaping. Mentioning schools. Asking when we were making the move. You don't want to raise kids in a townhouse, do you? Her father asked once, shaking his head. That's fine for now, but legacy means land. Legacy. That word again. The one I'd spent years building toward. Only now I saw it wasn't being respected. It was being claimed. They didn't see me anymore. Not as a person, not as a partner. Just as a walking asset. A door into the life they felt entitled to. Lila curled up next to me that night, warm and glowing from wine. Don't you love the idea? She whispered. Of all of us in that house? I didn't answer. Because I did love the idea of a family in a house. Just not one that was slowly staging a takeover. Not one where love was being traded for access. And not one where I was being softened up for acquisition. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. Lila was rearranging shelves in the living room again. Something about flow and light. I walked in and saw it sitting on the coffee table like a prop in a museum. My grandfather's compass. It was a simple thing, brass casing, worn edges, still functional. He'd carried it through France in 1944. Give it to my dad. My dad gave it to me when I launched the freight platform. Stay on course, he'd said. Even when people around you start drifting. I picked it up, ran my thumb across the etching. LTH, 1943. Hey, I said, mind if I put this back in the study? Lila turned, one hand on her hip. Why? I just want it somewhere safe. Her brow lifted. It is safe. I think it looks great here. I know, but it's important to me. It's kind of a family piece. She laughed, like I'd said something quaint. Adrian, it's part of the new life now. It belongs here. With us. No, I said gently. It doesn't. She tilted her head. You're being weird about this. It's just a little compass. It's a World War II heirloom. It belonged to my grandfather. It's not decor. She crossed her arms. Everything in this house is ours. What's yours is ours. Isn't that the point of building a life together? That line. Again. I tried not to react. Just held out my hand. Please. I want it back in the study. She didn't move. Instead, she smiled and sat down, legs tucked under her. I think you're being overly sentimental. You don't see me getting possessive about the things I've brought into this home. That's because nothing in here predates us. Not like this does. You act like I'm stealing it. I looked at her then, really looked. This wasn't about a compass. This was about a shift. A slow, creeping absorption of everything I'd ever called mine. This house, this life, the relics of my past, they were all being rebranded under us, whether I agreed or not. I'm not going to argue, I said. I took the compass from the table, wrapped it in the corner of a throw blanket, and walked it down the hall to the study. Lila called after me, "You're being dramatic." But I didn't respond, because I finally understood. She wasn't blending her life with mine. She was occupying it. And in that moment, I stopped hoping things would go back to normal. I knew they wouldn't. This wasn't a relationship anymore. It was a quiet annexation. And the war was coming. The first call I made was to Helena. She picked up on the first ring. "You've decided," she said. "No hello. Just certainty." "I have." I heard her exhale. "All right. Then we start today." Helena and I had worked together for years. She'd helped structure the company's exit deal when I sold. Smart, surgical. No tolerance for theatrics. She didn't ask for the story. She didn't need it. Instead, she walked me through the list like we were prepping for a corporate audit. New personal accounts, she said. Nothing joint, even in name. Password updates across every platform: banking, storage, cloud, phone backups. Already started, I said. We'll draft a full asset inventory, timestamped and documented. Any shared purchases? Nothing in my name, I replied. All the spending was on my cards. Good, she said. You'll need to prove that later. We worked for 3 hours that morning. Helena's paralegal started compiling logs, reconciling statements. I printed out every receipt from the last 4 months and kept them in a labeled folder. When I finished, I stared at the label for a long moment. Pre-separation inventory, H. There was no drama in this. No heartbreak. Just a strange, echoing numbness. That night, Lila came home humming, holding a shopping bag. Guess what I found? She called out. That vintage mirror we saw at the gallery pop-up? Got it for half price. I met her in the hallway, folder in hand. She smiled. You look serious. I am, I said. She laughed. Okay, Mr. Stoic. What's going on? I nodded toward the kitchen. Let's sit down. She followed, still smiling, still clueless. Once seated, I set the folder on the table between us and said, as evenly as I could, Lila, I'm ending the engagement. The silence hit fast. She blinked. What? I'm ending it. Her voice wavered. Because of the contract talk? You said you understood. I did understand, I said. You told me if I brought it up again, we were done. I haven't brought it up, but I am honoring your condition. Her jaw tightened. That's not what I meant. I know, I said, but it's what you said. She stood up, fast, like she'd been slapped. Are you serious right now? Yes. What the hell, Adrian? You don't just do this. You don't end something like this over one conversation. This isn't about one conversation. Then what is it? She demanded. I paused. It's about a pattern. About who you became the minute the topic of boundaries came up. About how quickly love turned into a contract I wasn't allowed to write. Her face twisted. Oh, give me a break. This is about control. You want everything on your terms. No, I said, quietly. I just want to protect what I built. And I can't do that with someone who treats limits as insults. She didn't speak for a second. Then came the storm. Yelling. Accusations. Tears that flipped on and off like a switch. You'll regret this, she hissed. My family will hear every detail of how you blindsided me. I nodded. I'm sure they will. She left that night, bags in hand, but not before firing a last grenade on the way out. You think this is over? She said, voice trembling. It's not. You'll see. The door slammed behind her. I didn't move. I just reached for the folder and turned to the next page. The first letter arrived 3 days later. A thick envelope with heavy linen paper and a logo embossed in gold. Lila's family didn't waste time. Helena read it while I stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the fog roll over the bay. They're going for the full spread, she said flatly. Emotional trauma, career disruption, equitable interest in the townhouse, and a claim on your remaining trust income. I turned. Equitable interest? We weren't even married. They're arguing that the engagement and cohabitation created a shared domestic partnership. California's vague enough that a motivated judge might entertain the idea if we weren't ready. She slid another sheet toward me. They also claim she introduced you to a key investor during a gallery-hosted dinner. They're calling it the catalyst for your company's distribution expansion. I almost laughed. That dinner? I'd already signed the LOI with Global Freight a week earlier. That meeting was a formality. Helena nodded. You'll need to dig that up. I will. But the part that made me go cold, truly cold, was the next page. The compass. She's listed it as a gift of love, Helena said, arguing it became shared property during the relationship. I clenched my jaw. She knows what that means to my family. She also knows what it means to you. That's why she included it. I didn't say anything for a long time. Later that night, the public front began. Soft at first. A photo posted to her Instagram, her curled up on her parents' couch, wrapped in a throw blanket, eyes distant. The caption, some people break things just because they're afraid to share them. Healing takes time. Then another, a story slide of a quote, money makes a man rich. Manners make him worth something. No mention of names. No outright lies. Just enough distortion to make people guess. To make people message me with polite concern. Hey man, everything okay with you and Lila? I saw something weird on her story. Just checking in. You've been quiet lately. Saw a post that seemed off. I didn't reply to any of them, but I read them all. That week, Lila's lawyer filed a formal complaint. In it, they argued that I'd used my wealth and legal connections to bully her into financial exile. That she'd given up professional opportunities to support me emotionally during my startup years. The irony made me sick. She was never at those 2 a.m. debugging sprints. Never in the warehouse, overseeing load tests. Never on the phone with customs when shipments got stalled. But now she was the reason it had worked? I forwarded the document to Helena. She replied 10 minutes later. We'll dismantle it piece by piece. Stay steady. I knew she was right. But in the quiet of that evening, I sat in the study staring at the compass on my desk. She hadn't even tried to steal it in person. She just wanted to absorb it through paperwork. To turn a family relic into a legal asset. A pawn. Not because she needed it. Because she knew I did. This wasn't about truth anymore. It was about pressure, pain, leverage. And Lila, for all her talk of love, had become fluent in using those things. I wasn't just defending my legacy. I was defending the line where I ended and someone else's ambitions began. The next morning, I cleared my schedule and opened a clean spreadsheet. Helena had warned me this would get ugly, and I wasn't going to let memory be our weakest link. The first thing I searched for was the global freight deal. I remember the date, April 23rd. The dinner Lila hosted was in May. I dug through my old email threads, scrolling past layers of subject lines and pleasantries, until I found the one I needed. Subject, LOI, Final Draft Review. Dated April 19th. I forwarded it to Helena with a short note. Signed before their so-called intro dinner. Timestamp attached. She responded in under 10 minutes. Perfect. One down. Next came the credit card statements. I pulled 4 months' worth and combed through each line. For every couture item, floral setup, hotel stay, or catered gathering, I found receipts with my name on the account and Lila's signature, either digital or scrawled with her telltale loopy L. I compiled everything into a PDF titled Unauthorized Personal Charges, Q2. I wasn't done. Helena had said, fight their story with receipts, literally. So I dug deeper. Every decorator invoice, every payment for storage, cleaning services, furniture assembly, I tracked them all down. All of it billed directly to me. I even found screenshots of Lila posting online about finally finding a space that feels like me, posing next to a couch I hadn't even realized was custom-ordered from a designer brand in Soho. It was in the guest room she'd never asked. Just added it to a delivery slip while I was out of town. Helena looped in her junior associate to handle itemized inventory claims. We'll get ahead of them on every single purchase, she said. If it has your name on it, they can't spin it. By the end of the day, I had an evidence file 3 folders deep. And then came the compass. They weren't letting it go. Their latest letter called it a shared artifact symbolizing relational unity, claiming it had been presented during cohabitation as a token of mutual commitment. I stared at those words. Mutual commitment. The only person who ever committed to that compass was my grandfather, dragging it across Europe, praying it would bring him home. Helena wasn't gentle about this one. We're filing a court order for its return, she said. They're trying to bait you into emotion. We're going to answer with force. She explained something called a declaratory judgment, essentially asking the court to formally declare that the compass belonged to me, alone, as a non-marital heirloom with verified provenance. I'll have an appraiser ready to certify its historical and personal value, she added. Once it's ruled private property, any claim they make on it becomes a liability for them. Why liability? Because if they keep pushing, it starts looking like conversion. Possibly even intentional infliction. They're not that reckless. They don't need to be, she replied. They just need to think you'll fold before we get there. But I wasn't folding. I stayed up late that night, not out of fear, but focus. I checked every document for typos. Every signature. I backed up everything twice, cloud and encrypted drive. And when I was done, I sat back in the chair and took a deep breath. They wanted a fight. So I gave them one. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just relentless. Because they'd underestimated the one thing I had more of than money. Discipline. The mediation room was designed to feel neutral, light gray walls, with trimmed windows, pitchers of water placed just so. But it didn't feel neutral. It felt like a stage. Lila sat across from me in a black wrap dress, hair in soft waves, makeup calculated for sympathy. Her parents flanked her like sentries. Her mother wore pearls. Her father stared at me like he was preparing for a business negotiation, not a legal one. Their attorney, a man named Boyd, known for aggressive divorce litigation, opened the meeting with a smooth, practiced tone. We're here today in good faith, he said, lacing his fingers together. My client is not seeking to punish Mr. Hartley, only to be recognized for her emotional and personal contributions to the life they shared. Helena didn't flinch. She adjusted her glasses and tapped her pen against a thick folder. Let's stick to the facts. Boyd smiled, unbothered. Lila placed her career on hold to support Adrian during a critical growth phase of his company. She hosted investor events, provided emotional labor, and contributed to the domestic environment that allowed him to thrive. I watched Lila nod, tears shining in her eyes, like she believed it herself. Helena opened her folder and slid a printed email across the table. This is from Lila's gallery director, she said. Dated 6 weeks after Adrian's acquisition closed. It's a thank you note for Lila's successful exhibit launch. She never paused her career. In fact, she expanded it. Boyd glanced at the paper but didn't touch it. Helena continued, calm and clipped. Here are receipts for every catered party, floral arrangement, and designer invoice billed to Adrian's account. Lila had free use of his finances but no oversight. He never once limited her access. Another set of papers slid across. And here, Helena said, tapping the final stack, are the signatures on every shared delivery, proof that Lila signed, not Adrian. Down to the custom guest room couch. Lila's lips parted, just slightly. We'd also like to address the alleged investor dinner, Helena added. We've attached the signed letter of intent dated a full week prior. The dinner was a courtesy, not a catalyst. Boyd shifted, but said nothing. And finally, Helena said, voice quieter now, the matter of the compass. Lila's mother shifted uncomfortably. Helena pulled a smaller folder from her briefcase and laid it gently in the center of the table. This is a notarized statement from Adrian's father detailing the item's history, along with a photograph of his grandfather holding it in uniform. This is not a shared token of romance. It's a generational artifact. She looked directly at Lila. And if your client continues to claim ownership, we'll be filing under California Civil Code for conversion and seeking damages. That includes appraisal costs, recovery efforts, and any related emotional distress. Boyd finally leaned back. Across the table, Lila looked, off balance. She blinked, once. Then again. She hadn't expected this. Not the paperwork. Not the composure. And certainly not the calm, relentless dissection of her narrative. She began. I never meant to it. This isn't about meaning, Helena said. It's about record. The mediator cleared his throat, sensing the shift. Let's take a short recess, he said, standing. Outside the conference room, I sat with Helena on a bench. She checked her watch, then glanced sideways at me. They're unraveling, she said simply. I nodded. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something almost like peace. Because they hadn't brought a case. They brought a story. And we burned every page. After the recess, the air in the room had changed. Lila's father came back in first, his face pale, jaw tight. He didn't look at me. Just walked to his seat like a man headed into a meeting he already knew he'd lose. Lila followed behind him, slower than before. The quiet confidence she'd worn like perfume for weeks was gone. She clutched a tissue now, though I hadn't seen her cry. Boyd came in last. He no longer looked like a man preparing a closing argument. More like someone trying to negotiate the best possible loss. Helena didn't sit right away. She stood at the head of the table, flipping through a binder slowly, like she was giving them one last chance to retreat. We've added one more item to the record, she said without looking up. The insurance claim on the compass. Filed 2 weeks ago. It's been appraised, photographed, and tagged with subrogation rights. Boyd narrowed his eyes. What does that have to do with anything? Helena closed the binder with a soft thud. It means if your client continues to claim it, she's entering territory where any damage or loss to the item could trigger a financial liability. One that crosses into fraud, depending on how far you want to push this. Lila's mother looked startled. Lila's father muttered, Jesus. Helena sat, then continued in a tone I recognized well, professional, firm, and utterly done. We've documented every claim. We've matched every story to verifiable evidence. Your client's assertions of career sacrifice, financial contribution, and emotional hardship are contradicted by her own records and social media history. She slid one final sheet across the table. Here's a screenshot of Lila posting about her gallery's success. Tagline. So lucky to work in a space that lets me thrive and be myself. Best year yet. Dated 2 months before the breakup. Boyd didn't touch it. Helena leaned back, folded her hands. At this point, if you proceed, we'll be forced to seek legal fees and countersue on grounds of malicious prosecution. Silence. Lila's father turned to her, his voice low but clear. It's over. Lila's lip trembled. Dada. No, he looked at Boyd. Drop it. All of it. Boyd hesitated, then nodded. We'll withdraw all claims, he said. No further action from our side. Helena nodded once. We'll draft a mutual release of claims by end of day. I expect your signature within 24 hours. They stood. No one made eye contact. The room emptied slowly. Lila lingered, as if searching for the right last word. But she didn't say anything. She just left. That night, A courier arrived at my door. A small parcel, no return address. Inside, the compass. Still wrapped in the same silk cloth I'd stored it in. No note. No apology. Just the thing itself. Untouched. I held it in my palm for a long time, feeling the weight, not just of the metal, but of what it meant. Not victory. Not revenge. Just something I had fought to keep from being rewritten. That was the last I heard from her. No texts. No calls. Just silence. And that, finally, was her last move. Surrender. The townhouse felt different now. Quieter, but not empty. The kind of quiet that didn't ache. The kind that settled into the bones like a held breath finally released. I sat at my desk, the study lamp casting a warm glow over the stack of finalized papers. Helena had dropped them off that morning, signed, sealed, finished. No further action required. Next to the folder sat the compass, cleaned, polished, whole. I picked it up, turning it slowly in my hands. The second hand ticked softly, steady as ever. For months, everything had been noise. Accusations, distortions, the dull roar of people trying to reframe my life around their needs. Now, all of that was gone. No voices, no manipulation. Just the sound. Tick, tick, tick. My grandfather had once said that a compass doesn't care about the weather, only the direction. That had stayed with me over the years, even when I didn't fully understand it. Now I did. I built my life from the ground up, the business, the sale, the future. But somewhere along the way, I'd started letting people steer. Because it felt easier. Because I loved someone who smiled while rewriting the terms without asking. And when I finally pushed back, when I set a boundary, it wasn't a disagreement. It was a war. But I won. Not because I shouted louder. Not because I burned bridges. I won because I didn't budge. I didn't let sentiment twist my sense of self. I didn't flinch when love turned into leverage. And I didn't forget who I was before her. The compass ticked on. I set it back in its velvet-lined box, then closed the final folder and slid it into the drawer. Done. No celebration. No moment of triumph. Just a simple, unmistakable truth settling in. I had protected myself. Not the money. Not the house. Me. There's a cost to clarity. You lose things, illusions, comfort, the people you thought would never turn. But what's left, if you're lucky, is solid. Undeniable. I stood up, stretched, and walked to the window. Outside, the city pulsed on. Inside, I finally felt still. And that, I realized, was the reward. Not peace handed to me, but peace I fought for. Peace I chose. Tick, tick, tick.